everybody, and welcome to your first day of video editing with Scott Halford in Premiere Pro. This is a Weber State University class. If you are accidentally stumbling upon this lesson, then you might be a little frustrated because you won't have access to our footage, and you also will not be able to edit along with us because of that. But if you want to get an introduction to Premiere Pro, then watch along. But just know also that these are completely unplugged lessons, so they're not fancy and polished and pre-planned like some of the tutorials you can find out there. So don't ridicule me too much for my taking it as it comes. All right, what we're going to go over today is I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. We're going to set up your hard drive for our video editing. We are going to get ready to edit a project through asset management, and then we're going to get an introduction to the Premiere workspace, and we're going to import some footage and just take a look at it. So first of all, a little bit about me. I got into video production when I was a teenager. I just ran around with my friends with cameras and just had a good time. If you want to, you can go to my Vimeo account. It is vimeo.com/Foresight Studios, Foursight Studios, and take a look at some of my stuff there. It's not a comprehensive look at everything I've done because most of what I've done is direct client work and I can't really just like show it publicly, but or it's work for Thomas Arts. I've been working for Thomas Arts. It's an ad agency in Farmington, Utah for about 10 years. So I've been doing my business Foresight Studios for about 18 years. And I've done all sorts of video production and motion graphics. Like there isn't really a category of video production that I haven't done. So sometimes I make myself look better than others. So, and as you know from the syllabus video, which was all out of focus, but I'm doing this by myself with a DSLR with no autofocus, so I wasn't able to monitor it. Anyway, let's move on. Let's set up your hard drive for video editing. I mentioned that you need to have an external hard drive because shooting and editing on SD cards or thumb drives and stuff, like they're getting really fast, but it's not a very practical way to manage a video editing project. And your operating system hard drive can fill up really fast or crash. So you definitely want to keep things on an external hard drive. I actually edit with SSDs connected through Thunderbolt, so it's really, really fast. All right, so let's get into that. Your first keyboard shortcut for the day is Command Spacebar. Sorry, all the key commands I give are for Apple users, so hopefully you're using an Apple. If not, usually a lot of these can transfer over to PC by using Control. So anyway, that'll bring up your Spotlight search. The other way you can get to your Spotlight search is way off of the top right-hand corner of your screen. Sorry, I am a tired person, so I yawn a lot. And you click on the magnifying glass up in the top right-hand corner of your screen. So what we need to open up is Disk Utility. And once you open up Disk Utility, you'll get a list of all your hard drives. If you just bought like a USB powered external hard drive, that might be a Western Digital My Passport or something similar. I've got some Samsung SSDs here. I've got a G drive or a LaCie drive, this 2 terabyte Thomas Arts Film and Motion drive. So I've got all these different things. So let's pretend you just bought and plugged in your USB powered hard drive, which might be your My Passport. So you want to select that on the list. And then the most important thing, so let me go over to Finder and take a look at this drive, this drive right here. If you hit Command I on there and Finder on the sidebar, you'll get this nice window that tells you information about your hard drive. This is already formatted to Mac OS Extended. I usually use that one because it's the most Mac-centric version. So if you're on a Mac and you're going to keep using a Mac, then format it Mac OS Extended Journaled. That's probably the best one for you. If you are going to be going back and forth between a Mac and a PC, you can do that pretty easily, but you will definitely want to, when you follow these instructions, use exFAT, because Macs and PCs can read the exFAT file format. So let's just do that. What you do is if you can either click here or here, depending on how your hard drive's formatted, and you go up to the Erase tab and you give it a name, like I've given it these different names here, and then you tell it the format that you want it to be. And then you click Erase. So from this list, if you're going to be going back and forth, MS-DOS FAT is kind of a limited one. So I would either do exFAT or Mac OS Extended Journaled. Those are probably the best ones for you, depending on what kind of machines you're going to be working on. And then once you've selected that from the drop-down list, given it a new name, then you would click Erase. Now, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to lose all the data on this hard drive. This process is pretty similar if you don't want to reformat like this, but like you do have your volume here and you want to erase it, you can do the same thing, exFAT or macOS. Sometimes that doesn't work, and what you have to do is go to the actual hard drive and partition it and set the partition as like the whole drive, and then your format as what you want it to be, and then that might work. And then you can go in and rename these. But anyway, the important thing for having your hard drive as an external hard drive is, let's say I'm working on a project and I need to take it to another computer. Well, I just disconnect the hard drive and I take it to the other computer, plug it in, and I'm working away. Now, if all of the assets aren't on that hard drive, then you're going to be leaving things on this computer. And when you take it to the other computer, that computer isn't going to automatically have all the assets that you need to finish your project. So from a project management standpoint, I'm talking about keeping everything on your hard drive. Now, I'm going to use this 1TB840-1 drive as my example, so you can call it, my Weber drive or my student drive or whatever you want. But inside there, let's pretend you have more than one client, and let's pretend that each class you're taking is a separate client. So what I would usually do is I would divide it up even further by doing a year, like doing all my 2019 things in one folder. But let's pretend like this next list is the list of clients. So Web 2300, I've already set Web 2300 up as a client on this hard drive. And then I've got this first day thing. But let's go ahead. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to show you my next key command, which is Command-Shift-N, and that'll create a new folder. So I'm going to call this first project. Okay. And then I'm going to delete this because I got ahead of myself for a second. So I created first project, and then you have to think about what's going to be in this project. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it Premiere, because I've got a Premiere project that I'm going to be starting. I've also got assets that need to go into this project. So I'm going to create another new folder, call it Assets. And then I need somewhere for my finished project to go. So I'll put that in my drafts folder. Okay. So this first project is going to be so small that those are probably enough folders. But let's pretend you have a client that has lots and lots of assets on every project. And inside, so inside every project I have in my working folder, I might keep my Premiere project in there. After Effects, Final Cut, other programs like 3D programs, or other programs like sound audition programs that reference outside assets. So it's different than Photoshop, because Photoshop, you open up a single Photoshop file and then you save a single Photoshop file and your image is in that Photoshop file. Well, with Premiere and Audition and these types of programs, you will have audio files and video files and Photoshop files, but your project will reference those. It doesn't actually edit those or change those video files. It uses those to create a finished video. So that's why we have to keep all these assets separate. So inside my assets, I've got audio, fonts, footage, graphics, photos, pre-renders. And then inside my doc, I will maybe have a docs folder if I've got scripts, if I need to keep receipts for the project. So this is kind of more project management. You'd put spreadsheets in here for budgets and stuff like that. And then I have a couple of different folders for my output folder. I've got my drafts. So like as I do drafts and do revisions, those different drafts go in here. And then once a version of that gets approved and goes out into the world and trafficked into the world, I will save that into my masters folder. And the masters are always only the approved versions. There might be different versions of the masters, but it's only the approved version. If it ever goes back and they're like, oh, we need to make changes to this, it needs to be updated, then whatever is the current master goes back into the drafts, and then the master gets, renamed as a new master once it's done. That way you don't have like a such and such project, final for real, final, this one absolute final, then your file names get out of control and you don't know which one is actually the real final. So what I do for my business is I have this client master set and that I will copy and paste. Okay, so this is actually on OneDrive, but if I wanted to create a new job for AlanCom, I would just click, drag this down, hold down Option, and it'll create a copy of it. And then I would rename this new project name. Okay. All right, I'm going to delete that for now. All of these folders are empty folders. There is nothing in any of them, except for maybe a project template. All right, but that's still just a blank project. So what I do is I take this master set, copy it, and then I'm going to paste this into my Web 2300 folder. And now anytime I need to create a new assignment, I would just copy this, rename it to project 1, maybe commercial or something like that. Give it a name. And then inside here, that's where you would copy all your assets. Now, the reason I do this, let's say Web 2300, we're using a logo that is the same for every single project. Well, even though I'm using the same logo, I want to make sure that I create a copy of that logo into every single one of these projects. That way, if I ever need to take the project to another computer or copy it to Dropbox so that I can go home and work on it, that everything is always inside every project file. Even if it's the same asset, we want to make sure that if we're using it in the commercial, we have it in the assets folder. And if we're using it in first project, we need to have it in that assets folder as well. That way, every time you move it, or if you customize it for that project, you're not customizing it and ruining it for the other project. So you always, graphic files are really easy to do that with. Footage, it's a little bit different, because if you have a terabyte of footage that you are referencing for multiple projects, that can get kind of hairy. So then you would need to lump the projects together inside a different way, but that starts getting really hectic. So we'll just keep it simple for now. All right, I have on my computer right now for I'm going to just show you how I'm going to do this for my my syllabus video, because I recorded on a DSLR. I did a screen recording, and I also did an audio recording separate, and I'm going to put them all together. So if I go to first day 2019, in my assets folder, I already have my screen recording. I'm actually only going to have a few assets, so this one assets folder is going to be just fine. And then inside my working folder, I'm going to put my Premiere project, because I might do some audio sweetening on it as well. But in my assets, I need to make sure that I have copied all of my assets over. So I've got my screen recording, but now I'm going to go over to my DR40, which is my my external audio recorder. Make sure I got this on so I can listen to it. All right, we can grade in any multimedia class. Okay, so there's my audio file. I'm going to drag that over here to my hard drive. And now I'm going to go to my other asset, which is this EOS Digital. I recorded it on a 6D, and these are the two files for that. All right, so while those are copying over, let's go over and get an introduction to the Premiere Pro workspace. So open up Premiere Pro. You should get a screen that comes up that looks similar to this. I think I've got the most current version of Premiere open, so hopefully this is good. I have a previous project that I had open. It's called Tutorial Project Get Started. Oh, actually, no, that's not mine. So if I had several projects open recently, they would show up here, and I could just click on them here, and it will know where they are and open them up. You have to have a project open in order to have Premiere open. Premiere doesn't open up and do stuff without having a project open. So right now, I'm going to click on New Project in order to get it open. And then you get this dialog box, which has what you're going to name this. And I'm going to call this my syllabus. Or let's do first day introduction. Introduction. Now here's your file. So naming the project, something that you're going to remember, is important. And the only other thing you really need to care about on this screen is where you save it, this location. So I'm going to click on Browse, and I'm going to navigate to my class drive, to my class folder, to first day 2019, and then I'm going to save it in the Premiere folder. Now, let me show you what happens in Finder as soon as I open this up. So choose, and then I just click OK, and Premiere will open up. Previous audio device, that's fine. We can open up hardware preferences later. I'll show you how to do that so that you can play your audio back on your headphones or on your speakers or whatever you need. But let's go into Finder and let's look at what that did in my Premiere folder. So I have this first day introduction. Now it's just one file, right? This PRPROJ. When I tell you to email me a project file, this PRPROJ file is all you need to send. As I start working in this project, it's going to create two other folders for assets that it will manage and it will take care of. You don't even need to touch it. All you need to worry about is this PRPROJ file and keeping track of it. Those other two folders that are going to pop up in just a little bit, if you had this Premiere project here and all your assets and everything just right here, it would just look like a rat's nest of files, and it would be hard to keep track of them. This way, if you need to open up this project, it's always in this folder. Okay. Now let's go to Premiere. Here's the Premiere workspace. So you go in here. This is your project panel. inside here, this is where you further organize your project. So we've done this organization here. We've got our assets all, let's go to one of my bigger ones. We got all of our assets here in all these different folders. Well, you want to create those same folders here, but in the video editing world, they call them bins, but really they're just folders. But you create these bins and then you organize them in here as well. What you do in here is only organizing inside your project. It's not actually organizing the files on your computer. It's just referencing the files. So it's like double organization. You have to have organization here and organization here. It's for your own sake as well as anybody who might open up your project and collaborate with you on it. So we have Premiere open. You bring files into here. You preview them up here in the source panel. You edit them into their timing and do all the different, cuts and things here. And then your final output is here. Okay. So let's get started with that. Let's go ahead in here. If you right click in here, you can create a new bin. See, I can't even call them folders in here. They're bins. So if you create a new bin, that's just a folder. So I'm going to call this my assets folder. And then you can view assets different ways. So in your project panel, just down here in the corner, you can click on this icon view, which will allow you to see thumbnails of everything. Or if you take that off, it'll just show you a list view. Oh, sorry, it's right here, list view. If you just click on that, then you can see a list of everything. Now, I'm going to select this folder and I'm going to now import some assets. There are several different ways you can import assets into Premiere. I'm going to teach you the fastest. Right now, the fastest, since I have a Finder window open with this project in the assets folder, the fastest way would be to just click on them here, select them here, and drag them into the project folder. Okay. So that brings them all in that way. Now, I just brought them down into the project panel. They didn't actually make it into the assets folder. So I'm going to undo that and show you how I can drag them directly into the assets folder. Don't make me a liar, Premiere. There they are in the assets folder. So I'm going to select these again. I'm going to delete them from here. The next way to import files into a Premiere project is to use the key command, Command I. So if I don't have this bin selected, it'll import them directly into here. If I do have this bin selected and I hit Command I, then it will import them in there. So let's go up to first day 2019 assets, and I'm just going to select all of these, and it'll import all of them. If I just do one at a time, I can do one at a time as well. So I'm just going to import all of them, and there they are in my assets folder. All right. Next way, you can double click in the negative space in your Premiere project panel, and you can select them that way. It's the same thing as hitting Command I. All right. And then you can drag them into the assets folder. Keep them organized that way. All right. So here's what I mean by you bring them into here, you preview them here, you edit them here, and then you watch your final project here. So if I double, like this little icon right here, this little green thing with the waveform on it and the purple thing behind it, that means there is audio and video. This green thing with the waveform, that means that's just audio. If there was just the purple film strip, that would mean it's just video, no audio. Okay. So if I double click on any of these assets down here in the project panel, up here, it's going to allow you to watch the video. Hey, that's me. Hi, welcome. Say hi to me. That's out of focus. Yep, whole thing's out of focus. That's okay. I'm not going to make it so you have to look at me big and out of focus the whole time. But anyway, if you want to play, just remember to keep your thumb on spacebar all the time, because that'll allow you to play it and stop it. Play, stop, spacebar, spacebar. Okay. You can use your mouse and navigate these buttons over here, but that is a slow way. Anytime you have to use your mouse to find something and click on it, that slows you down, because it's much faster if your thumb is already on the spacebar just to hit spacebar. Okay. Now, we're going to go over this again when we're setting up our first project, but I'm going to just take this, drag this whole thing down into this, and that'll create a timeline from that video. And over here in my project panel, it just created a new timeline, or it's called a sequence. It created a new sequence with just this video file in it for now. Okay. So now what I can do is go in and I can trim this, make it shorter. I can cut different parts of it. Cut it out. I need to change these settings so that you guys have the appropriate keyboard shortcuts. Okay, and now I've made a cut. Let's watch. Let's zoom in on this cut and watch it. Okay, so it's all happening up here. All the cutting and editing that I do down here in the timeline panel, that'll show up here in the program panel. Okay, so that's your finished product up here. Now you can take this sequence and you can turn it into a mixed down file. Like, so you can now take this and you can put it into another timeline and you can edit this. Like, all these cuts and stuff will just turn into one clip that you can edit. So we'll do that later. But basically that is importing footage. One last thing on importing footage. I'm just going to delete everything because I didn't actually do any work. If I hit Command I and I go to my assets folder and just select the assets folder, it will import the assets folder as a bin. Okay. So, if you have all of your assets together and you've got it separated into audio and video and all that stuff, you can literally just drag all those folders down into Premiere. So let's go here. I'll show you. Go here, select these folders, drag them into Premiere, and I have all those assets separated out. Ugh. Let's do it this way. Project 1, assets. Import those, and it imports them. At least it was supposed to. It didn't import anything because there's nothing in those folders. If there were, then it would have imported them with all those folders intact. So I think this is all I was planning on doing. Importing footage, introduction to Premiere Workspace. What we're going to do is, in the next assignment, I have a little short video that I shot with my kids in my living room yesterday, and that is going to be the first handful of assignments, is editing that together. So I hope you enjoyed this introduction to Premiere. Get your hard drive set up, get your folder structures set up, and let's get editing. All right, talk to you soon. Bye.